Office Hours. Today is Thursday, August 22nd. My name is Heather Cox, and with me today are my beautiful co-hosts.
Hey everybody, Stephanie Stevens.
Hey, Amy Bandy Taylor.
And we are very excited. Sometimes I get sneaky and I steal things. And one of the things I stole was Will Thomas. To be fair, Will was on my team when he started, and then he went and worked on what is called our national team and got himself just immersed beyond belief in the world of Copilot. And he actually helped several of our education customers kick off their programs with Copilot. And so, you know what? I just went and I stole him back. And so, Will, we're going to turn it over to you, and the show is all yours.
Thank you, Heather. Well, it's great to be back in education. It was a blessing and a curse to leave, but I got to learn a whole lot about Copilot, and then I got to come back. So happy to be back. So most of you guys probably saw the announcement last week on enterprise data protection coming to Microsoft Copilot. And in case there was any questions around it, I wanted to cover that. So today we're going to go through that and some of the other updates that have come to Microsoft Copilot, specifically M365 Copilot, since you guys met last time. So first we're going to cover this enterprise data protection. So before we dig into what that is, just a general, what do we have now? So for Microsoft Copilot, and we're talking about the web-grounded version that you all have for free. It's a generative AI service that's grounded in data from the public web in the Bing search index only. It doesn't have access to your organizational resources or any content from the Microsoft 365 graph. So like your documents or emails and other data. The Microsoft Copilot is a public web service. So if you log in with your Entra account, you get that commercial data protection with that as well. M365 Copilot adds three things. So you access to your data within the Microsoft Graph. You get your prompts and responses are processed entirely within your M365 service boundary, along with other M365 specific security, compliance, and privacy features. And then in addition, you also get access to the Gen AI capability from M365 in applications like Teams, Outlook, and Word. So just kind of setting the tone there's always some confusion around the different Copilots because we name everything Copilot. So specifically, we are talking about those two right there. The last. All right, and then a nice little graph to kind of break down, what we have today. So on the left-hand side is that Microsoft Copilot. That's that graph grounded, or the not graph grounded. That is the web grounded Copilot that you all have access to today. So what is the difference between the two? The main differences we're going to talk about is the data protection. And so with Microsoft Copilot, you have commercial data protection when you're signed in with your Entra account. With M365 Copilot, you have enterprise data protection. For your prompts and responses, Microsoft Copilot, all your prompts and responses are not stored. They're only maintained for a short caching period, and that's for the runtime purposes. And after the browser is closed, or the chat topic is reset, or the session times out, Microsoft discards your prompts and the responses. And all your prompts and responses are not used to train foundation models. For M365 Copilot, the prompts and responses are stored in the user's Exchange email box for compliance scenarios, like e-discovery cases and things like that. Again, those are also not used to train the foundation models. For web queries, both Copilot or Microsoft Copilot and M365 Copilot pass to Bing search service to retrieve information from the web to ground a response. All that information is abstracted and de-identified from the user's prompt and grounding data. And then you have user controls for web grounding. For Microsoft Copilot, since it is all web grounded, there are no user controls. For M365 Copilot, the end user can turn that on and off with their plugins for each session. And then the admin also has control over that at the tenant level as well. So that's kind of where we're at now. But you might be asking, what is enterprise data protection? So let's talk a little bit about that and some exciting news with that. So starting mid-September, Microsoft Copilot will be available to Entra account users at no additional cost and will also offer enterprise data protection. That means that security, privacy, and compliance controls and commitments available for Copilot for Microsoft 365 will extend to Microsoft Copilot prompts and responses. So what does that mean? So your prompts and responses are going to stay within the Microsoft 365 service boundary, and all the associated data handling commitments will also apply. Your prompts and responses can be logged and have retention policies applied to them. Your prompts and responses will be available for e-discovery and other purview capabilities. And then commercial use of Microsoft Copilot will be covered by the data protection addendum and your product terms for all prompts and responses. And probably the one that most people are excited about, no more ads will be displayed in Copilot chat in the web version. So what is data enterprise or enterprise data protection? With EDP, prompts and responses are protected by that same contractual terms and commitments that are widely trusted by our customers for their email and Exchange and their files in SharePoint. So what is that going to mean? It means we're going to secure your data. We take the security of your data very seriously. We're using encryption both at rest and in transit to protect your data. And additionally, we have security controls in place for that. And we ensure that data isolation between tenants to prevent unauthorized access. Your data is going to be private, and we're only going to use it as you instruct us. So that means we're going to adhere to strict privacy standards to protect your information. And then your access controls and your policy apply to Copilot. So we're going to respect your identity model, your permissions, your sensitivity labels, your retention policies, your audit logs. It's going to follow all that. And your administrative settings and the specific controls and policies will vary depending on your subscription plan. And then lastly here, your data is not going to be used to train the foundational models. If you ever take any of our trainings that we do on Copilot, we say that about 20 times, and that's just so that you guys are rest assured that your prompts or responses and your data that's accessed through the graph are not used to train our foundational models. All right, so that's the good news. Hopefully you guys saw that announcement. If anyone has that link to that specific announcement, go ahead and drop that in chat for everybody.
What was that date again?
September 15th, I believe. I'll have to go back and look at that, but I believe September 15th is when it's supposed to come.
Thank you.
Yeah. Marge, do you have a question? We did before we move on. No question. Okay. All right, so that's all we had for, or that's all I have for that. If there are any questions, we'll do all the questions at the end here. Just a few more slides for you, and then we're probably going to end early. I had some other things lined up, but some things happened. Life happened. We have a couple new features though, and so I put kind of the ones that I like the most in here, the ones that kind of get the most traction when I do demos, and the ones that my users are like, that's awesome, that's going to save me a whole lot of time. I tried to include those here. So the first one is regarding Outlook. So we used to just have the three features. We had summarizing your email, drafting your emails, and coaching your emails. So anything you wrote, you could get coaching on. And then recently, in the past, I think it was 3 months, we also added this Copilot sidecar within Outlook. So if you needed a summary of your emails, like a bulk of emails, or you wanted to see what your manager's been emailing you about recently, or find emails about a specific project, you used to have to go into a different Copilot to do that. Now we can do all that within Outlook itself. And one of the nicer things we can even do in here is things like crafting and organizing our emails faster. So the new Draft by Copilot feature simplifies the email drafting process. So by selecting the Copilot icon at top right corner, you can open that sidecar there, and then based on whatever email you're reading at the time, you can do a natural language prompt like reply to this email and say XYZ. And it's going to automatically compose that email based on what you were just reading. So before you'd have to open a new email pane, and then you'd have to do your prompt in there. Now you just, from the email you're looking at, just click the Copilot and do it from there. So it just saves a little bit of time there. But the one that I really like, and I was talking about this with another group, I used to be one of those zero inbox people, meaning as soon as I got emails, I'd read it and sort it, and it goes somewhere, it was deleted or in another folder. Since joining Microsoft, I have not been able to keep up with that. So one of the new things you can do in here is organizing your inbox. So you can use this, let me get a little laser pointer here. This prompt here, create an inbox rule too. And so you could say from any email from Dwayne Hyatt, put in the deleted folder, or any email from Heather, or with this subject line, go here. And you could start processing all these rules very, very quickly, just using natural language. So if you're not used to how to use rules in Outlook, now you can just do it by talking to Copilot instead of figuring out all the settings in Outlook and all that. So a really nice way to get caught up on it. I think I started this morning, I started about 1,500 emails on my inbox, and I am down to a little under 500. So I'm getting there way faster than I would have without this one feature. The next one I want to show you is Copilot in Excel. So if you remember, Copilot in Excel is actually still in preview. So it's I think it's slated to come to GA sometime in September, October timeframe. But this one feature here is saving people so much time, and it's its ability to split columns out using natural language prompts. So you have a column like the one on the left where we have last name, salutation, first name, some have a middle name in there as well. And using this prompt at the top here, I was able to split that out into 3 different columns. And in addition to that, I'm changing that last name to proper case instead of all uppercase. So I'm doing all of that with one prompt, and it takes a matter of seconds for it to complete it all. So that was one of those huge time savers for people, and I really like it. I'm always doing stuff like this, and I never know the proper syntax for these formulas, so I'm always having to go out to the internet, figure out the syntax, and that just takes so much time. Our last one here we're going to go into is Copilot in Forms. So you can create quizzes and surveys in Microsoft Forms in literally seconds using natural language prompts in Copilot. So I'm timed it here, and the time it took me to type out that prompt on screen, Copilot finished in less time than me to type that prompt. And so it generally will create 10 questions for you. It's normally a good variety of types of questions. So it might be multiple choice, true or false, using those stars features. But the ones I've done, it's done a really good job. I created several of these for my son, just doing math quizzes based on his level that he's at and higher to see how high he could go before he couldn't answer them anymore. And it did a phenomenal job. It's very quick at creating these surveys. I think that's all I have. I have one hidden slide here. I'll leave this up here, and I'm going to put this prompt in chat for you all to use sometime. You can use this in that free Copilot. It's just designed to help you learn how to prompt better by breaking it apart into the different ingredients that we have. But yeah, let's open it up for questions.
There's a lot of chatter around
Right.
the launch date for enterprise data protection and what it does. So can you go back to the very beginning when you were talking about Copilot for M365 versus Copilot with enterprise data protection?
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me also see if I have the date on that, unless you found it.
It just says mid-September.
Okay, yeah, I think that's why I got September 15th from.
And we all know what mid-September means, right? Office hours friends, can you help us with the date of mid-September? What does that really mean?
Is that the recipe for soups?
There we go. Just know, as is traditional, that it may potentially be a little later than that. Just understand.
April 25.
We had a hand up. It went down though. I think it was Pradeep. If I said that correctly, I think that's whose hand was up.
No, yeah, it was me, but I was just plotting his presentation.
Oh, good. Well, that's what? That's good.
Take it.
What other questions are we possibly missing? Marge, what you got?
Your hand's raised. You got to come up mute too, though.
An issue unmuting.
I think she
something
was
in the
having
chat
trouble with her
earlier.
mic earlier. Yeah, she was having trouble with her mic.
She's got a 345 chat question.
All right, Marge, you want to put it in the chat? Is that the one that you've got? I don't know if it's the one she's got there. Now my dogs are having a battle over.
Let's get that question in chat, and then Todd, you wanna go since you're next? What was your question?
Sure. You showed the Outlook features with Copilot. Are those available now, or are those coming in September as well? Yeah.
These are available now. I actually did this for my demo tenant, which uses. I mean, they were rolling out in June, July, so they might not be in your tenant yet, but they have been. They are being pushed out, and I
Okay.
was told they would be available starting in July, so they
And
should be.
Should I see that when I open up an email? I should be able to open that on the side, because like right now, when I open up an email, all I'm getting is summary by Copilot across the top. So I'm just wondering where that's coming from.
You bring up a good point. Are you using Classic Outlook?
No, I'm using New Outlook.
Oh, you are. Then you should be seeing that icon. So it's going to be
Okay.
up with like the minus and the X and all that, and like up in that top right area. There
Okay.
should be a little Copilot icon up there. If you're not seeing it, let's take it offline and we'll see what we can do. Might need to open it. Who is next? Sean?
Yeah, could you go back to the slide that shows the difference between the transition from CDP, EDP? Yeah, so is the only difference between the license that you're paying for Copilot for M365 and what CDP is transitioning to EDP, is it just the ability to connect to the graph? Because I mean, with this slide, they seem to be, very similar.
They kind of leave out a few things though. The big
So was there
difference-
any other differences is what I was asking.
So the free version was not going to interact with your application. So you won't be able to do things in Outlook or Word or PowerPoint, Excel, all that. And it doesn't have access to your graph content. So those are the two big differences there.
What was the first one again? Sorry.
The free version, there is no interaction with the applications themselves. So you can't do things in Outlook.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And you said that when we get EDP, what I thought I heard you said is it won't be interacting with your data at all either. It won't have access to your data.
Correct. It is still only grounded in web content, not your
Okay.
graph.
Okay, so it's not accessing graph content, but you're getting the enterprise data protection so that you'd be able to retain your prompts. That's from a feature perspective, what people are seeing, that's the biggest thing, isn't it?
It's the end users, yes. And then
Yes.
your admins also get control over it as far as compliance.
Gotcha.
And security. So yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the big deal here, I don't want to speak on behalf of Madam President, but is the data protection addendum. That was something she mentioned many times
right. Yep.
in
Yep.
last year. So having this now, like before, commercial data protection was more or less like a consumer service that you could authenticate to with a commercial identity.
Right.
Now it's becoming more of a commercial service, right? An enterprise service, because we're going to allow you to apply some of those enterprise controls like you would to Teams chats and Outlook emails and those types of things. You're going to be able to do retention, e-discovery. And that is what is kind of shifting this into that realm of, okay, the data protection addendum is now in play. And, from a legal perspective or a compliance perspective, I think this is going to hopefully unblock this for a lot of you, and it's free. So.
Yeah.
I did get my microphone turned on. The
Hey.
reason why our attorney is asking for, is it under the CASA agreement, which is the campus and school agreement, is that is a binding agreement between Microsoft and UT versus a web page commitment from Microsoft. So you can imagine a conservative privacy attorney is more thrilled to be told it's under the CASA, which points to the DPA, which points to online, et cetera. And that's why I keep asking, is it going to be part of our, will it fall under the CASA? Am I making sense now?
I'm still trying to, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I put in the chat what is straight from the FAQ. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah, no, I think what we may have to wait for the product terms to show up to see, but yeah, the lawyer, well, I will work with the lawyer to say, look, it's at least a web page commitment. But she's happier if it's an actual signed agreement. So that's
product
why
terms
she was
should be
asking.
the same as Microsoft 365 Copilot. And those
Correct.
terms are already published. So if there are any questions, we can give you the links to that.
Okay, so when I buy M365 Copilot, I assume I'm buying it under my CASA agreement, my EES. Okay, never mind.
But I'm also not a lawyer.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll pump it up through an attorney. Okay,
Sounds good.
thanks, guys. And I really
Nope.
appreciate the EDP. That's great.
Jack, you had a question.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about what happens with I see that the user toggle available for web searches is part of the M365 Copilot suite. We have that suite, we're piloting it, but we're hesitant to turn on the web search because it says there's a little pop-up that comes up that says data will be potentially, there's some qualifications for data. What data goes out when you use a web search plugin in Microsoft Copilot for 365?
So I had a feeling this question might come up. So I actually had a hidden slide in here about this. So it's
sneaky, Will. So
like that.
sneaky.
So nothing's going to be changing with that part. But the way that works is if you have that toggle turned on and you do your prompt, Copilot, if it determines that a web search is necessary to improve the quality of that prompt, it's going to take some words out of that prompt to form a Bing search query. It's going to take that Bing search query. It's going to send it off to the Bing service, get that response, and kind of meld it into your response with Copilot. Now, it's not going to include that entire prompt. It's not going to include your documents that you might have linked out there or anything like that. But it might have some keywords from that prompt. The only time it might send that whole prompt is like the example here on screen is if that prompt is like one word or 2 words or something like that, then it kind of has to send something. But if it can answer your prompt with information from the trained model and from information in your graph, there's no need for it to go out to the web. So if you're asking it about your benefits information or something like that, that is part of your graph content, then it's not going to be creating a web query because it doesn't need to. But if you were to ask it who won the Stanley Cup this year, that's probably not in your graph information. It's also not part of the trained model yet. So it's going to have to go out to the internet to get a good answer for that one. And then it'll always tell you if it went out to the internet or not, because it's going to have a reference there. So you'll start seeing like a URL there, and you'll know it went out to the internet.
And to be clear, it's not training a language model with that action, correct? Okay, correct. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And if it does that, all your organizational data and that user data, that has remained private, that's not getting sent with that query.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. The large language models are what we call stateless. They do not change unless we update them. That's a common misconception that people have, is they think that Copilot is learning how to get better based off of their organizational data and what they're using with it, and that's not the case. It's like Men in Black. We hit it with the little flashy thing every time you use it.
Thank you.
I like that you asked that question, and I'm glad I was prepared for that one. Any other questions? I have one for you all, if there's no more for me. And it is, what is keeping you and your organization from either piloting or rolling out M365 Copilot, and what can we do to help with that? And that's a big question.
Oh, yes.
Todd.
Price.
Okay.
It's all the money. That's it. I mean, you got 6,000 employees at $30 a month per employee. Unrealistic.
Dwayne, how much does it cost to have an assistant
I was waiting on that. I was waiting on him to finish.
Oh,
Don't have one
you're
of those
gonna
either,
do
though.
this to me? uh, if you hired Copilot as your personal assistant and Copilot worked 40 hours a week as a state employee, got 2 weeks of vacation, and got all federal holidays off, Copilot's salary would be 19 cents an hour.
Right, but I don't put
Sounds
an
about
employee for every employee.
That is also true. I would
And
say
honestly, most of us are all salary, and they don't care if you work the extra hours.
And they surely don't give me an assistant.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a teacher. I get that.
Because
Because they'd be getting even way less per hour if they actually counted what we really do work per hour. But thank you for the feedback on the cost for sure.
it's the
I think the cost, yes, but also I think people are still trying to wrap their heads around generative AI tools and functionalities and what Copilot really is, and feeling comfortable with it and trusting it, and it's getting there, but I think there's still some needed exploration before really diving into it where they would feel comfortable to use it in that capacity.
Really good point, Velvet. I think we only have in this obviously instance we have 3 minutes left of this particular session, and I do think that is worth a longer conversation. 100%. That may even be something that we want to, in this group, talk about at some point in time. There's some really great facts and things around that, and different ways to think about it. But I totally understand.
So I know only had a few
Todd, do you
seconds
have
left,
another?
but yeah, just to go away from the money, and let's just say it was reasonable or whatever, and we can afford it. We still got the information security side of it that is our concern at our university, just because now things are so much more visible, I guess, or whatever. You have Copilot go out and look for something, and it finds things that someone accidentally, put the wrong permissions on, when before it was just hidden. Nobody really knew that it was, open to the whole university. But now, Copilot says, hey, we found the, budget for such and such department or whatever it may be. So, on my end, there's some hesitation on everybody wants to go. But I also need the resources and make sure that everything's in a secure state. And that's a difficult one just because, again, resources. So I look to Copilot for security, but I can't afford that one either. So so it's just a matter of, getting those things lined up before we can even launch with some of the stuff.
Yeah, another one that, like, these are really fantastic questions, and they are ones that they make a lot of sense, and they're very, very legitimate concerns. And we also have, things we can give you some thoughts and feedback around, but just with the limited time. But I'm so appreciating that you're sharing honestly, so that we can know what it is that's holding people back. And so let's finish with Margaret. David, I saw you popped yours up. Let's do those last two, and then we will call it for today. And then we'll stop the recording. What you got, Margaret?
So I did put it in the chat that policy development, use cases in a K-12 classroom, cost of course, and then training, what does that look like? And then actually the folks making time for the training. I will say that our school district has put out there by Innovative Learning and Leadership in our K-12 district that Copilot, the free version, the web-based one, and the one that's in the, built into the OS, that's where we're starting people off at. We do have a very small group that are using Copilot for M365 to, start wrapping our brains around it like everybody's saying. But right now in our district, it really is about the policies, what does it look like? And then of course, data governance, just like everybody's mentioned right at the end too. So, we've got 50 to 60,000 users in our K-12 district and 2 people in InfoSec. So yeah, there's that challenge too. But my team loves it. We love it. We're using it. So we're working on advocating.
That's really awesome. And not to, I know I've already shamelessly plugged it once, but I'll shamelessly plug it again. The entire purpose around introducing Club Copilot was because we did feel, so Dwayne has been answering a lot of questions. Will be voluntold to show up and play with us. And if you know Carlos Fernandez, he is an educator as well, and who works here at Microsoft. But we felt like we really were missing some of the just basic end user fun. Like we really wanted to have some fun with Copilot. We adore MS Office Hours, obviously, but we do typically tend to err on the side of technical most of the time and get into the weeds with that. So we wanted to have another look at Copilot. So if there is anybody who is from student to CIO, we've actually got that range in the community now. Anybody is welcome to do that. We're going to have that's where we're going to have some fun. So that's intended for end user, intended for how do we get better at Copilot. So let's go to David and then we'll wrap up.
Too much, and I was listening to the conversation, so I wasn't reading everything Dwayne said, but I believe it was Todd that was mentioning the issue of it discovering something that is sensitive information and then reporting it to the user because of the use of Copilot. And again, it may be too much to ask for, but my thought was it is AI. It should be able to do the security to say, hey, I don't report this to this person, but I should report it to the security professional over there who should know that this sensitive file is sitting out there. I can't tell from Dwayne's comments whether he's saying that it actually would do that.
So I was saying it's integrated with Purview, meaning that if you apply a sensitivity label to a document and Copilot references that document, it will obey that sensitivity label. And it's really important for everybody to know that Copilot is running in the context of the user. It is not giving the user access to any additional information that they did not already have access to, meaning teams that they're a member of, file sharing links that they have clicked on, public teams or public SharePoint sites they already have access to. So it's not going to say like, hey, can I have Will's salary? In fact, the responsible AI checks that are built into the model would tell Copilot not to even respond to that prompt.
I was about to add, if you start asking it for things you shouldn't be asking it, more than likely the RAI is going to stop you from even asking it.
Yes.
It'll just...
Awesome. Well, we will certainly circle back to Copilot. Obviously, it's something very important to us here at Microsoft right now. That's not a secret. But we will circle back to it. I'm really hoping when I feel free to test. I sent the new invite. I did it as a forward. I'm trying to do it with respecting the privacy of everybody on the team so that your email's not everywhere. I mean, obviously, I know in the chat, sometimes you can hover and see things, but I just was trying to be as judicious as possible with keeping privacy on the email invite. So hopefully when I end this in a second, y'all are good and you can still access it. But if you all have thoughts as well on it, if that doesn't work, and we'll see what we can do. So thank you, everybody. I am going to end the meeting and then we'll get this posted on YouTube as always, and y'all can share it out and share with those who want to know more about Copilot. So thank you. Have a great night.
Bye, everyone.